Well, what do you know? What do you know? The Eagles, they go in the MetLife Stadium, a place where basically just in the Meadowlands in general, where they've had improbable wins, amazing comebacks, the dominant victories, and all that stuff. They walk up in the MetLife Stadium. It's raining, it's snowing a little bit, the weather's not the best, it's very cold out. And they completely stomp on the Giants. Waxed their ass. They completely waxed their ass. That's basically the bottom line of this entire thing. What a dominant victory from this Eagles team. Probably the only thing you can say about this game was that one special teams thing, and honestly, that was just the offense putting them in a terrible position. But overall, my God, Jalen Hurts was amazing. A.J. Brown surpasses 1,000 receiving yards this year. Miles Sanders surpasses 1,000 rushing yards this year. That's the first time, the Eagles have had an 1,000-yard, wide receiver and an 1,000-yard running back. I think they said since 2014. LaShawn McCoy and Jeremy Maclin. So, my God. What a game. And especially with the, that second quarter, that one throw that Jalen Hurts had to Devontae Smith on 4th down. Into the end zone, perfect throw. One of the Giants players completely overran the play. Just complete easiness there. It's too easy for Jalen Hurts. You got Nick Sirianni going crazy on the sidelines. Just what a dominant win. What a dominant win to improve the 12-1. And also, as you're watching on the scoreboard, you're seeing that the Dallas Cowboys are struggling against the Houston Texans. They ended up winning that game, sadly, but seriously, it took them until the last so many minutes of the game to have a dominant drive. Even though the Texans' fault, they get an interception, right in the red zone for Dallas. They have all these chances to score, basically, to put the game away. And the Texans prove to you why they are a 1-11-1 team. They can't score when they get that easy opportunity. And that's basically why Dallas won that game. High-end talent basically carries you the entire way. But I don't want to hear anything about, this week, even though it's most likely going to happen from the national media standpoint. Oh, look at Dak Prescott. Look at these Dallas Cowboys. When they were in the midst of defeat, they got a huge stop in the red zone after a terrible interception by Dak. Dak basically hurls this team to victory, gets them on a huge game-winning drive, gets a huge touchdown late to basically seal the game off. I don't want to hear none of that. I don't want to hear none of that while the Eagles are over here basically dominating every opponent that they're playing. It's not even a joke at this point. It's true. It's absolutely true. My goodness. This was just an absolute ass-kicking. An absolute ass-kicking. 48-22. Are you kidding me, Jalen Hurts? Are you kidding me, A.J. Brown? Are you kidding me, Miles Sanders? And even the defense, too. Brandon Graham out there getting so many sacks on the day. There was not one point in this game where I was worried. I know, those people are going to overreact, the special teams thing, with that, weird punt. But overall, this game was just perfect. It was a perfect game overall. And there's really no complaints about it. It was just so dominating. It was incredible. Everything about this game. It just was. If you're looking at everything right here, Jalen Hurts on the day, 21 of 31 attempts, 217 yards total, 2 touchdowns, 109 quarterback rating. It's honestly the easiest bet in the world probably every single week when watching the Eagles, probably getting anytime rushing touchdown by Jalen Hurts. That's probably the easiest bet because what does he have, 9, 10 rushing touchdowns on the year, I believe. And I think between Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, and A.J. Brown, they all have 10 touchdowns on the year. 10 plus. Seriously. It's flat out dominance. This team is easily the best team in the NFL right now, and it's not even a joke. It's not even, contested at this point. You're seeing the Vikings lose to the Detroit Lions. You see the Dallas Cowboys struggle against the Houston Texans. And you're looking over in the other league with, the Chiefs. They're still probably, I would say they're probably the favorite in the AFC. Then you also got the Bills. But there's really the Eagles are the truly best team overall in the NFL. Obviously the NFC. So it's no contest at this point. No contest. You already clinched the playoff berth. All that's left basically is to clinch number 1 in the NFC. And honestly, you could probably do that in the next few weeks or so. I know there's that whole 18th week, which it really still throws me off that there is a full 18th week in the season. But overall, it's just, I don't think it's a contest at all. Miles Sanders on the day, 17 carries, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns. What a year for Miles Sanders, especially. That's what I want to point out, too. Miles Sanders, last year, wasn't a strong, he had basically probably one of his worst seasons of his entire career. And no touchdowns, anything like that. He comes into this year, contract year, a free agent after this. Dude's putting up a career year. Broke the 1,000 rushing yards this game. Like I said, he has 144 yards in this game to break that. Gets 2 touchdowns on the day, especially after last year not having a single touchdown. He has 10 touchdowns this year. 10, 11 touchdowns, honestly. That's just flat out. What a year to have on a contract year, honestly. This is a fantastic year for Miles Sanders. And who knows what he's going to get in the free agent market. I would assume the Eagles would try to bring him back, but you can't basically script anything better from Miles Sanders at this point. This is just a fantastic season for him overall. And just looking at some other numbers, Boston Scott, he had a huge kickoff return in the second half after the Giants, they scored a touchdown to, for some Eagles fans, probably made him nervous. At the end of the day, Boston Scott, it's death taxes, and he owns the New York Giants. He also records a touchdown basically in garbage time where all the backups are out there when the Eagles were up by such a wide margin. And it kind of just felt like at the end of the day, near the end of the game, the Giants are calling timeouts. They're running out of bounds. I'm like, dude, you're down by 30 plus. Stop trying. I want this game to end. I want it to end. My goodness. Daniel Jones on the other side, he was getting torched by the Eagles defensive line and everything. He got sacked 4 times. Brandon Graham had so many sacks. Hassan Reddick getting involved in there. TJ Edwards had a couple of big hits in this game. And, they basically dominated the entire day, and they held Saquon Barkley off. And that was going to be the question mark for the Giants because he had a neck injury coming into this week. He only had 9 carries for 28 yards total. So they really held Saquon Barkley in check. So that's 2 weeks in a row. The Eagles front completely stuffs, a couple of the best running backs in the league. You got Derrick Henry last week, completely made him invisible. And then you shut down Saquon Barkley, who was having a much better season. Even though the past couple of weeks he's been pretty much invisible. But overall, he's been having a much bounce back year from all the injuries that he's had the past couple of seasons. So that's definitely something there. Looking at the receiving side, A.J. Brown, 4 receptions for 70 yards. Devontae Smith, 5 receptions, 64 yards. Like I said, especially on that 1 touchdown play on 4th down. This dime by Jalen Hurts, and especially it's on 4th down too. And just looking at some of the plays from this game, after you force the Giants to punt on the first drive, you go down, you take a whole 8-minute drive, running it down. Miles Sanders doing his thing. Jalen Hurts throwing dimes basically to every single person out there. And you find a way to get a touchdown, opening drive, and then you force the Giants to punt again. They force you to get to a 4th down situation, but like I said, Jalen Hurts, 41-yard pass, Devontae Smith. It's too easy. It's too easy. Too easy for him. It's just that simple. You get another touchdown after this whole weird punt situation from the Giants' perspective. They fumble the return, and the punter, he fumbles from the center. Then he tries to kick it off the ground. Then there's a whole penalty situation where they lose yardage because technically it was an illegal kick. So the Eagles are just easily in Giants territory. And all Jalen Hurts needed was a wide open A.J. Brown on 1 play, 33 plus yards. My God. Seriously, at that point, you probably figured the game was over. Even though offensively, that 1 drive where you did have the block punt, it was just... Sipos, though, I would say it was kind of impressive that even though the punt got blocked, he kind of prevented a touchdown from happening on that specific play, even though he does get injured on that, an ankle injury. And that was the one thing that was very concerning today, because we all know MetLife, it's artificial turf, and especially with the bad weather out there, there were quite a few injuries out there. I think Lane Johnson left the game. Sipos left the game as well. I think Gainwell or Watkins had an injury, so there were a couple of injuries basically throughout the day. So that's definitely something that you got to look at, and especially for Sippos, he's also their holder for field goals for Jake Elliott. So Jake Elliott, he had one, he had to do a punt. Britton Covey had to be the holder for a couple of field goals at the end of the game. So that's definitely something, Britton Covey, basically, I guess, a man of all talents. He can return punts, even though overall he hasn't been that good this year, even though last week was basically his breakout. Solid game, but I guess you could say he does everything. But still, just a complete dominant victory. I think that's the bottom line. Complete dominance all around. Just all around. And looking at some other, receiving, Jack Stoll had some catches. Calcaterra, he had a couple of receptions as well. Hurts was especially targeting him early on in the game. Quez Watkins had some targets. Miles Sanders actually just barely missed a huge game when the Eagles, I believe it was on that drive where the punt eventually got blocked. There was a great, throw dime by Jalen Hurts that just barely, went, Miles Sanders barely went out of bounds at that point. And the same thing for Devontae Smith. He almost had another touchdown in this game where his feet were just, he wasn't fully in bounds. 1 foot went out, 1 foot was in. So that basically prevented a good gainage from him right there. But overall, it was just, I would still say there's completely nothing to complain about in this game whatsoever. It was just flat out dominance. It's flat out dominant overall. And that's bottom line. 12-1 on the year. You already clinched the playoff berth. Basically, the next goal is now just to clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC to get that bye week for the playoffs. You're basically getting closer and closer to that every single week. And next week, you could probably consider the trap game. Justin Fields, the Chicago Bears. They're not a good team, but Justin Fields has been showcasing the talent that he is, especially on the running side of the ball. Been really impressive on that side. You could definitely consider next week a trap game for the Eagles. Hopefully something where they don't, play down the competition. But I'm not expecting anything, monstrosity right there. Who knows? Maybe the Eagles can do the same thing that they did this week and completely go down or up to Chicago and flat out destroy the Bears. And then you set yourself up for Christmas Eve against the Dallas Cowboys. So, man, there's a lot of exciting games coming up, especially 2 weeks from now, or honestly 3 weeks, that you're playing on Christmas Eve against the Dallas Cowboys. That could be a very good or bad Christmas, depending on the results of that game. But that's still a long ways away at this point, even though it's going to come up on us very quickly. Still, it was just fantastic all around. Seriously, you couldn't script a better game. Just overall. The running side, especially when you got into that second half, you started running the ball a lot more. Some script runs from Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, just because the weather was getting a little worse. So you're basically just, okay, it's starting to rain a little bit. Let's run the ball more. Just put the ball on the ground, waste some clock. We're up by this wide margin. And just basically try to set the game off. And you still find ways to score, too, in that second half. Get a field goal on the opening drive. And then once the Giants go down the field, you respond basically right after that. Jalen Hurts runs it right up the middle for an easy touchdown, easy play overall. And then basically that was the game from there. Giants turn it over on 4th down. You go down the other way. Miles Sanders gets his second touchdown in the game and then basically ending it off. You get a Boston Scott touchdown when all the backups are out there. So, just this game, man, this team, this Eagles squad, it's just unbelievable with the way they're playing right now, with the way they're clicking on all cylinders. Any type of game that the opponent wants to play, the Eagles can match that up tenfold and completely overshadow that. Right now, we all know our only weakness is, special teams. That's the bottom line there. I know Blankenship also went down with an injury, and you also had to see Kevon Wallace out there on the safety position, which was kind of ugly. Gave up some big plays, so that's definitely something that's going to be addressed, hopefully, for the next few weeks. But until you get CJ back. But yeah. Especially with the offensively, too. We know how Dallas Goedert's been out for a couple of weeks. Hopefully, he should be returning soon. But with the way this offense, Shane Steichen and all that, has been able to, overcome the Dallas Goedert injury because he was a crucial guy on third downs. He was basically a reliable guy you can go out there, especially on the blocking side for the rush. They've been doing some real good things right there. Miles Sanders is coming up with some huge blocks. Same thing, Kenneth Gainwell as well. Made a huge block in this game during one of the passing plays. So, overall, this team is so far overcoming a lot of injuries to some key players, and they're still finding ways to win. Still a lot of games left, though. 12-1, you're clinched a playoff spot. Like I said, basically the only thing that you're focusing on now is getting that first overall seed in the NFC to get that bye week. And you're very close to doing that, honestly. Very close. Because if we look at the NFL overall, and just look at the rest of the schedule, too, for the Eagles, just to see the upcoming games. So after this week, you play the Bears next week on the 18th, a 1 o'clock game. Then you get the Christmas Eve game against the Dallas Cowboys. You got 4 games left, 2 games on the road, 2 games at home. And then the home games are against the Saints and the New York Giants once again. So, going to be, a couple of easy games. Like, I would say the toughest game is most likely going to be that game against the Cowboys, no doubt. But I'm not worried about this team overall. Find ways. I wonder how many more wins they even need to. I would assume if they beat Chicago next week and they beat the Cowboys the week after on Christmas Eve, they would clinch the NFC East. That's what I would assume at this point. But I wonder how many more wins it will take for them to clinch the NFC East in a whole. So that's definitely something that I'm intrigued by. But let's go to the standings just to see everything there. Look at the entire. Can I look at the league or the conference? So how many wins do we have on the Vikings right now? We're 2 wins ahead of the Vikings, 2 wins ahead of the Cowboys. So it's basically, who do the Vikings play in their upcoming schedule? Because they lost to the Lions today. They got kind of smoked. They play the Colts next week. They play the Giants, the Packers, and then the Bears to close out the year. So they have pretty much an easy schedule, even though they did lose to the Detroit Lions today. So anything is possible on that standpoint. The Cowboys, besides that one game they have against the Eagles, they play Jacksonville next week, Titans on Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football, it looks like, and the Washington Commanders on their final game of the year. So that's how they close out the year, other than that Eagles game on the Christmas Eve. I wonder, how many more games do they have left until they clinch? I don't think anything says it right here, but it's probably a few more wins, I would assume so. A few more wins. I would most likely, if they win their next 3 games or something like that, I would assume they clinch the NFC. That's what I would assume if they just keep on this pace. They win their next 2-3 games. I would assume 3 games they clinch the NFC East as a whole. That's what I would assume at this point. So, but still, 1 week at a time. Got the Bears next week. Most likely, everyone's going to be considering that a trap game, which honestly it is. Because look at the Chicago Bears. Where are they at? They're the worst team in the NFC. They're 3-10. So that's obviously a trap game. A game where maybe you could see the Eagles look down the competition a little bit. So that's definitely a game you don't want to overlook. You want to go into Chicago against a very easy opponent. You just want to beat them down. Like, no jokes, no anything like that. You just want to go there and just completely destroy them. And then you push into the following week, Christmas Eve, against the Cowboys. Because that's the game most, especially with the trap game, because you're playing next week against a very easy opponent, then the following week it's Cowboys week. So there's definitely where you can consider next week a trap game for the Eagles. So there's definitely a lot of things you can look to in those coming games, but overall, still nothing to complain about tonight. Today was just flat out fantastic. We do have a voicemail here, and you can leave those at 215-839-9885 if you want to leave a voicemail, text message for the stream, anything like that. And if you do happen to do that, definitely leave a name so I can save that contact for future uses, just so it can help me. Basically at this point, I'm giving you a preference, giving you options. You can utilize the YouTube live feed, utilize the Anytime Hotline, your choice, your preference. I'm just giving you options. So let's listen to Sean Fitzpatrick on what he has to say about today's Eagles completely ass-whooping of the New York Giants.
Hold on, Amadeo. The Eagles are about to score again. Hold on. Like I said, loved every minute of it. Well, almost every minute of it. To see our punter get racked, the unfortunate injury to Blankenship and I guess the re-aggravation of the shoulder injury to Quez, not a good thing. But other than that, who can complain about this game today? I mean, the defense got pressures and sacks. They didn't force any turnovers, but they beat the living shit out of Daniel Jones. He was a human pinata by the third quarter. And we just abused them, running the ball, passing the ball. This is what you want to see at this point in the year. If you're a true contender, you want to be playing your best football down the stretch. And the last 2 weeks, it's been pretty damn letter perfect for the Eagles. I just hope the injuries aren't going to be their ultimate downfall.
Yeah, let's not harp on the injuries and look into the gloomy side. But even though that's something that you definitely got to look into with sit posts and everything like that, because he wasn't able to even come into the game to be a placeholder for the field goals. So hopefully that's not another situation where you got to put someone on the IR. Even though Jake Elliott has showcased he can punt the ball, but are you most likely going to have to bring someone up from a practice squad, sign someone to be basically your punt guy? So that's definitely something to look into there. Also, with the Blankenship injury, you're forcing Kevon Wallace into another situation where you don't want to see him in because he's not that good. And also with, the Quez Watkins shoulder re-aggravation, hopefully that's just something that they just sit him for the rest of the game and just let him rest this week and all that. And we'll find out what happens during the game next week if he's going to be active or not. But overall, it was just a fantastic win, fantastic victory, and no complaints. And it's like what you said, Sean. This is what you want to see going down into the stretch. It's what shows how good of a contender you can be. Going up against your division rival in the Meadowlands, MetLife, completely massacre them. The massacre at the Meadowlands 2022. It's probably going to be another one of those Meadowlands type of stories. It's probably going to be one of those games, most likely, or people would like to label it like that. But yeah, no complaints about today. And we were just enjoying another Eagles victory, improving to 12-1. Can't be any better than this, folks. Cannot be any better. So that's going to do it for today, everyone. Do not forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. I like to see those as always. Do not forget to drop a like on the video. Do not forget to check out everything in the description. Painted Lines, BrodesMedia. I recommend all that stuff. Same thing with hitting that subscribe button. It does me a great deal. Join the TTP Sports family. And also use the code TTPSPORTS. $20 off your first purchase at SEATGEEK. Use it for anything you can think of it as a great deal. Do not pass up on that. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining tonight. And